Welcome to Successful Parenting, where we, Jackie Rue and Robin Choquette, share practical skills for families to build resilience and healthy connections. As practicing professionals and parents ourselves, we hope this podcast is a resource for parents to grow, reflect, and learn more about themselves and their children. Our approach is simple, tangible, and most importantly, we lead with compassion for the integrity of the families we serve. This podcast should not be taken as medical advice and is intended for informational purposes only. We love our work, and we can't wait to watch families gain confidence and open themselves up to new ways of successful parenting. Hey, Jackie, how are you today?
Good, Robin. Things are going well. Since our last episode, I've been even thinking about ways that can kind of shift my nutrition around. And I love how, Katie mentioned last week just about, kind of preparing foods in advance. And, Steve and I, my husband, are trying to do that on Sunday and just incorporate, not huge changes, but just small changes throughout the week. And so, so far it's going pretty good. It's been a couple days, but I learned a lot last episode with Katie, and I'm excited to, continue part 2 of this conversation.
Yes, I agree. I think just reminding us of that mindful eating, that's so helpful for me. And I agree with you, Jackie, is setting some time to kind of prepare for that. And it actually makes life a little easier. I do try to do a menu ahead of time, but I think kind of incorporating some more of that pre-preparing has just made it really so much easier. I know for me and for my family. So last week was great, and I can't wait to finish our conversation today. Welcome back, Katie.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me.
Sure. I think it's always good, Katie, and I know we talk a lot about this, but a lot of families have asked us about, their children's, especially like pre-adolescent, adolescent body image and confidence. And so many young people are really talking about wanting to look different and wanting to look like the Instagram model, these facials and all these other things. Let's talk a little bit about, how to develop healthy relationships with our bodies and really teaching kids about, nutrition and movement versus, diet and exercise. So what are some of your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I love using the terms movement, right? And I think that relationship movement doesn't have to be for an exact time or anything about changing our body, but just about how moving can help improve our mood. It can help release those endorphins. It can help increase our energy throughout our day. Nothing has to be more than 10 to 20 minutes of movement. It doesn't have to be intentional. It can just be leisurely, getting outside, especially in our summer when it's hotter outside, just moving our body a little bit more, making it fun too. I think when we don't have to make it intimidating or it has to feel threatening, it should just be fun, and we'll feel our best and we're going to be more motivated to keep doing it if it's fun. It's something we're looking forward to.
I like that because I think that is something a lot of times as parents, it's, that get off your games, get off your social media, get off your phones, whatever it may be. And why don't you go exercise? And the kids are like, ugh. But I like that incorporating it to be fun and movement, you're going to see the child getting more likely to be involved, and it's less of a hassle and fight.
Definitely. And I think and these changes could be for the whole family and not just particular family members. I think that'll also help increase motivation as we're doing it as a family, going for a family walk after dinner, going for a family bike ride on a weekend, and just encouraging like new sports or activities, maybe certain classes over the summer. And then, of course, modeling is another great method for encouraging physical activity. So if we're all doing it, it eliminates the stress on adolescents or children to have to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you find that families are resistant when you start talking about movement? Do you find that they usually are open to that?
I think it depends on their relationship with movement. And I think they're definitely the more motivated to hear when they use the terms movement, and it doesn't have to be this intense exercise where it almost is kind of painful. So I think that definitely some of them are more open to it. They like when I say it could be fun and it more just part of like their family values of what we do as a family can be more activity based versus, watching a show or a movie together. It could be like, what could we do this weekend that can get us a little bit more movement in? And I think more families are open because they want to improve their family time, being more present with their children.
One thing I hear from, I think adults in particular, but even teens and adolescents, is when we encourage this and they do it, they'll say, well, I don't see results. I don't see changes. I didn't lose weight. How do you answer those questions?
Well, we talk about movement is not just about changing our body, but feeling better in our body. And I think the focus needs to be on how much more energy we have, or focusing on how much stronger we feel. If it's something like strength training, it might be having more power with increasing your weights that you're lifting. And again, having more energy to do these things, the increase in stamina or endurance, being able to go for longer walks or longer bike rides when a few minutes used to be really hard and really draining. Now you've improved your health, and we're focusing more on that piece, just improving our health, feeling better overall, like you said, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So it helps regulate that whole dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Katie, I have this question because I've had it, and I know we've all had parents coming in and saying, I'm so worried about my child's weight. And I've had also children to say in adolescence, my parents are always on me about my weight. And you can hear adults talking about their childhood. That was always mentioned to them about the weight. How do we start those conversations with kids in a way that doesn't create this almost shaming of them?
Absolutely. Such a difficult conversation. We try to focus on overall health and not body size, which is sometimes very hard for parents. And we really want to, again, like you guys said in the beginning, we want to talk about positively parents about our own bodies too, to be good examples. Talk about healthy lifestyle or balance and increasing your movement. Not only does it help with sleep and mental health, but these are the keys to what physical health is and feeling our best, not necessarily just a body size. I think reframing from comments that encourage dieting or weight loss, which can be associated with feeling, like you said, feelings of shame or low self-esteem, just talking about how much better we'll feel and how much more energy we'll feel when we're moving our body, or we're, again, paying attention to our hunger and fullness cues. And instead of using numbers on a scale, but just really balancing our nutrition so we feel our best, I think improves just with feeling stronger and more powerful, the verbiage we could use at home instead of looking at and shaming with for body or body size. I think also nurturing their nutrition knowledge by educating, emphasizing like balanced nutrition, like we talked about in the first episode, and that there are no good foods or bad foods, but we're really trying to enhance their intake with certain foods that maybe they're lacking, more produce, more protein. And I think those will help making sure we're getting enough dietary fats and carbohydrates as part of the plate to help really focus on fullness and satiety. What makes us feel satisfied, I think, is, again, another focus. Instead of talking about mentioning the child's weight, we're really trying to dive into these bits and pieces. And of course, we really want to focus on the positive, knowing that you love them regardless of their body size without judgment, and to know that you're on their side while supporting them to adopt these healthier habits, I think is one of the most important things. And again, focusing on nourishing positive self-image, focusing on using words like energy, having energy to feel your best each day, focusing on power, like I mentioned before, having power to get through a sport or activity, and of course, strength, feeling strong throughout the process.
Energy, power, and strength. I like those.
It kind of builds up their esteem too, right? It makes them feel confident. We're increasing confidence along the way too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as the adults, we've talked about it too, we can kind of teach our kids, what expectations to have, what goals to have. They really look to us. And I find that so often as the children mirror kind of the parents' views on overall nutritious and movement, and sometimes that's good and bad. What the child's seeing from their perspective, it can be eye-opening.
Yeah.
So I think, I love I love the conversation about talking about healthy body image and being able to help our children with that.
Absolutely. And I think just really remaining positive, like you said before, just about our own bodies and really trying not to pick apart how we feel. And I think really just fueling our body in order to feel our best. Right. And that movement piece versus the exercise can be helpful.
Right. And in a healthy way too. And I think I know you're doing work to even, try to educate like coaches and gym teachers on the importance. And I think that is huge, because I think they need to hear it from all avenues, right? They need to hear it from their coaches and their teachers, and that performance is about being healthy. And sometimes being healthy needs to come first. And so often I think our children don't get that message.
Absolutely. Like you guys said in the first episode, if it didn't, was just about going to like the doctor's offices and the messages we hear, and everything's so focused on like the number or the scale, and just really just focusing that whole mind body example of how we're going to feel better physically if we're fueling our body and we're moving our body. And I think, the messages we get from doctors, from our coaches, from teachers, if we're more positive, we can increase confidence and self-esteem in our children and adolescents instead of making them feel like we're putting them down or having them, develop any kind of disordered or eating disorders.
Definitely. What are some myths and truths about nutrition? I'm sure you hear so many of both.
Oh, all the time. I think different myths, I would say one that I would focus on is cutting carbs and how the fear that carbs make people gain weight. And I think the truth, and that's the important piece, is that that is a myth. And the truth is actually carbohydrates are the foundation of any good, healthy food pyramid. It's an important part of the 3 macronutrients that our body needs. Our body and brain need the glucose derived most readily from carbs. In order for our body to function, it is a necessity. It is not something we can eliminate or avoid. I think it's understand how do we incorporate it as part of a balanced meal and a part of our balanced diet, not to be eliminated. So I think that one definitely is what we're hearing more in society. Another myth, I would say that snacking is unnecessary, I hear, and that snacking can actually help boost energy and increase metabolism, allowing your body to fuel throughout the day, preventing overeating, preventing mindless eating, and decreasing any kind of binging later on at the end of the day. And snacks can also help provide additional nutrients that can help balance out and regulate your mood during the day. So when blood sugars drop and our mood drops, these snacks help eliminate that so we're better able to get through our day at school or even through the summer with energy. And of course, focusing on different nutrients and balancing our plate. Another myth are that diets are effective. I want to believe that the truth is diets don't work and should not be followed, especially children or adolescents. Any significant restrictions in overall nutritional intake can cause a stunting in growth and development. And I think people forget that. The goal is balance, variety, and moderation, and really focusing on making lifestyle changes, like we talked about earlier, increasing and focusing on movement and developing healthy habits. And of course, always making sure you're consulting with a registered dietitian when making any changes to anyone's diet intake, especially as a child or adolescent.
These are great. I love them.
One thing I would like to talk about, if you are a parent and you're concerned about your child, either that they are not eating enough or concerned maybe you feel that their weight is not where you would want it to be. Maybe you're concerned that they're developing poor eating habits. We definitely recommend talking to the pediatrician or to your doctor. But also, when we talk about, myths and truths, being mindful of how you approach conversations with your child, how you approach, meals and food and going out to eat, that you really want it to be a whole family shift versus isolating a child. Then I find that the more the parents react in a way that's, either putting stress on the child or making comments, should you eat that? Or you've gained too much weight, or, you're too thin. Whatever the comment is, I find that it is not usually taken in a helpful way from the child.
Yeah. And I think to stress more so, like we said before, was that eating is so individualized and there's not one right or wrong way that one person should be eating. And so I think it does take an entire team or a family to develop these better healthy habits. I think if there's any concern in any way of under eating or disordered eating or even emotional eating, then definitely should be something that you maybe ask, trying to set up appointment with a dietitian, but I'd be very cautious with the conversation directly with the adolescent. Maybe again, talking more about developing those healthy habits at home by sitting down and having the family dinner, incorporating all that balance that we talked about, incorporating that increase it. Let's all go for a walk together. Let's increase our movement as a family. So instead of it's just one child that we're focusing our attention on. And I think, again, just using those terms, like we said, fuel your body. And we really want to focus on being strong and powerful. I think those are big keys, and never wanting to shame about any changes in body. But the concern for not eating enough can be very dangerous, and it definitely needs to be something that's addressed in a very kind, helpful way instead of doing more damage by commenting on the negative of different kinds of foods that we're talking about.
Right. And even for parents, I think shifting into healthy habits versus focusing on the weight and focusing on, and I've had parents too, and especially when there's concerns about not eating enough, they're racing to different restaurants and trying to find any food that the child will eat. eat. And ultimately what I see is that reinforces, and it's not always healthy either. Again, it's a family thing. Meals can be a great time to teach social skills as well, and communicating and, having fun and creating joyous memories, not having devices at the table, taking your time to talk about, what went well and what didn't during the day. So I think there's so many opportunities that can happen when you sit down and share a meal.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned like planning ahead as a family, getting the kids more involved, adolescents and children involved in the kitchen, in the preparation and the planning process, and making food, again, fun and looking forward to it. If you plan ahead for the week, the expectations would be that this is what's going to be served, this is what we're having, and having opinions and everybody involved in what we're going to have, the choices, maybe cooking more or involving baking and making food fun in the kitchen. We don't want our children and adolescents to be afraid to be in the kitchen. We want them to understand how important it is to fuel our body and give our body enough gas throughout the day. So I think definitely sending those positive messages, like you said, as a family, it comes down from parents sending those really positive messages and being good examples overall.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Katie. And, I could go on forever with this topic. I think it's a good one and an important one. So thank you so much for sharing. And Robin, yes, I think we are ready to move into the questions.
Okay, here we go, Katie. These are the 3 questions that we ask every guest. You may choose to answer 1, 2, or all 3 of them.
Okay.
It's your choice. Let me read the questions and then you can take it away.
Sounds
Number
good.
1, what did you do as a child or teenager that would drive your parents crazy? Number 2, what is the biggest difference between children and teenagers today and when you grew up? And number 3, what does successful parenting mean to you? Take it away, Katie. 1, 2, or all 3?
Let's start with let's see, what was number 2? Was 2 the biggest difference between?
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be social media for sure. As the society now, social media is affecting our children and adolescents so much. I think reading on a computer, reading an actual book is so very different. I think one of the big ones I would say is using our imagination. I feel like these days nobody uses imagination and know how to play. My kids struggle with being able to actually just like come up with a game and playing on the spot and not just relying on electronic or me as a parent to try to entertain them.
Yes.
I just feel like we're so focused on doing all these different activities and not being present with our children as much too. I feel like as a kid, we were always outside playing and very involved in activities. I feel like it's so different in this society. I think definitely social media has had an impact on that for my children particularly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Katie. We certainly appreciate your time, and I am sure our listeners have gotten just tremendous amount of information and help from you in these last 2 episodes. So thank you, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks so much. And I know I'll see you soon. And thank you, Robin. I hope you have a wonderful day too.
Yes, going to see a grandchild, so I'm very excited. Okay, bye everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you for joining us, and make sure to subscribe and like us to catch our next episode, where we will take you on a journey to find new ways of successful parenting.